You're listening to Convenience Matters, brought to you by NACS. Whether it's for food, fuel, drinks, or snacks, about half of the U.S. population shops at a convenience store every day. We'll talk about what we see at stores and what the future may hold for our industry.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for taking the time out of your day to listen to Convenience Matters. My name is Chris Blasinsky, and I'm with NACS.
And my name is Donovan Woods with the Fuels Institute in NACS. I'm happy to be here, Chris.
Yeah, and today we have a fun guest, Dr. Ben Chapman, who's a professor and food safety extension specialist at North Carolina University. Hi, Ben.
Hey, Chris. Hey, Donovan. How are you guys?
We're doing good. What I was, kind of doing a little, side investigation on you and looking at your bio. And one thing kind of struck me is that there's a 1995 movie called Outbreak, which completely terrified me. And it seems to be your inspiration for the career field that you have chosen.
It's 100% true. Yes, that is, very correct.
Yes, I do remember Dustin Hoffman climbing a tree in a remote country of some sort and coming back with a vaccine and save the world. And the irony of all that is I feel like we're actually in that situation still.
Oh my gosh.
It is like a far-fetched movie from the 90s that actually came to fruition. And created all kinds of havoc on the world. So you chose the right profession, I should say, based on your movie selection from 1995.
Yeah. I had this really great high school biology teacher who was all about trying to connect what's going on in the world with what we were doing in the classroom. And he made this kind of recommendation of we should all go see this movie. And I went and saw it. And I mean, this is like the nerd dream. But I started reading a whole bunch of books on pandemics and viral outbreaks and then ended up going to college to study molecular biology and microbiology. And that's what I do. But it really, I rewatched the movie with my kids recently and it kind of stands up, but I'll tell you a much better present day movie to get more people into infectious disease is Contagion, which had that movie come out when I was in high school, I for sure would have been an epidemiologist at CDC or something. But yeah, it's all true. It's all good. Good stalker. Try to find some background on me, Chris.
I mean, I'm not a stalker, but Donovan now is completely terrified as well because
that's correct.
And intentionally, so it's intentional that we have someone from something called the Fuels Institute on a food safety podcast because Donovan he's our consumer, right? And Ben, I know you do a lot of work on, with the Partnership for Food Safety Education, which is very consumer focused. And so Donovan, hopefully you'll get something out of this and feel safer with your eating choices. Ben might have the tendency to ruin your dinner a little bit.
Exactly. Yes.
But it's all good information that you need. I'm not going to say hand washing. I know Donovan, we're not going to go there, but things like, let's look at cross contamination on surfaces and where you're cooking. And please tell me that if you cook your Thanksgiving turkey, that you're not washing it in the sink and things like that.
So don't prepare my dog's raw diet with my. Okay, got it.
Oh, we can talk about raw diets too. Food safety, pet food safety. I'm in on all these fronts.
Well, Donovan, his little best friend Miko. I get all the updates on Miko all the time. So, Donovan, are you giving Miko a raw diet? Do we need to talk about this?
Yeah, I'm going to go off. Once this ends, I'm going to call you, Ben. I've been on a raw diet for 2 years, so I'll give you a call.
All right, sounds good.
So, coming out of, going back to Outbreak, the movie, we are in a situation now where we have a vaccine and, hopefully things will start to calm out a little bit. But, looking at our channel, the convenience retail channel, we've had some conversations over the year so far where, there's just been such this heightened focus on, and rightfully so, on the safety and the cleanliness of the stores. And, retailers are essential businesses, so they were able to stay open the entire time. And so it was, 15 minutes, every 30 minutes, the duration of the cleaning and the sanitizing of the surfaces and everything of the store. And of course, keeping the employees safe with the PPEs and distancing and whatnot. I know that, you're working with a group, Food CoviNet, which NACS is, happy to be a part of. And it's looking at something called Hygiene Theater, which I first read about in a magazine article in The Atlantic, and of course have, kind of tuned into it a little bit. Can you just kind of maybe give a little synopsis of what that is and what that means? It's kind of a provocative term, but I think it has, some really interesting implications for a channel like ours.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I think when we're looking at COVID-19 and the virus that causes COVID-19, SARS-CoV-2, there are a few things that over the course of this pandemic, we've learned quite a bit about since, January, February of 2020. And that is that the riskiest thing that leads to illness is being around other people and this person to person, a term that has sort of risen over the last few weeks is looking at shared air. Two people are going to be close to each other, multiple people in the same shared air, and virus particles move from one person or multiple people through these moisture droplets when we all talk or laugh or cough or yell or sing or whatever. And that's like our number one number one risk factor. One of these things that I think it's a universal acceptance that's the thing that we're really, really worried about. The secondary aspect, and this is where Hygiene Theater really comes in, is that when I talk right now, as we're conducting this podcast, we're not, obviously in the same room, but there are moisture droplets coming out of my mouth that if I was, infected with SARS-CoV-2, that those droplets would have virus particles and they're going to land somewhere. And the secondary focus of containing disease transmission is how do we control where those droplets land and what do we do with it? And so Hygiene Theater is really this idea that we've spent a lot of time on things that are visual. We can't see the virus particles. We can't see the moisture droplets, but we certainly can see an employee in a convenience store or a grocery store or at a restaurant or at a farmer's market cleaning and disinfecting high touch surfaces. And where the science is and how it's evolving is really trying to better understand how much risk reduction we're getting out of this cleaning and sanitizing of high touch surfaces that isn't also controlled by hand washing. And so the concept is we're displaying a lot, right? Like it's theater. We can demonstrate that it's important that we're doing things, but it may not be getting the same, and certainly actually I wouldn't say may not, certainly is not getting the same risk reduction as face coverings, cloth face coverings, face masks, what have you. But it is something that I think patrons, customers, the public has become in tune with, and they expect to see when they show up at any public space. And the argument is we need to be really focused on the things that are reducing risk, not the things that people perceive as reducing risk. And I don't think, it's not clear cut. It's not like an either or, but mm-hmm. certainly in the convenience store setting, that's a lot of labor and it's a lot of disinfection and a lot of compounds. And that's, how much risk reduction are we getting at it? I don't think it's clear right yet. Right.
So the goal then is to basically to study that and to get the scientific, evidence and it's not, I don't think anyone's looking to be cleaning less, but I think they are looking at, what exactly do I need to be doing here in order to keep people safe?
Right. And we have a finite amount of resources. Is cleaning a surface every 5 minutes better than every 15 minutes? Is every 15 minutes better than every hour? Probably, but how much better? And I think where our project is really looking at this is trying to really develop the data to help answer those questions. And, I work with a team of researchers from University of Florida, Rutgers University, and University of Nebraska at Lincoln, as well as at NC State where I am. And we're really in the midst of working on experiments to look at virus persistence in food settings and on food contact surfaces and on food packaging, on takeout packets, all the way back to the farm. And we're doing this really to help understand where we really need to be putting our risk reduction investment of time and labor and focus. And all this being said, I really should sort of say from the start, this number one risk is person to person. Mm-hmm. The secondary risk that we don't know how much further back are these contact surfaces that we can touch with our hands and maybe pick up the virus. But way down at the bottom of the list, literally no evidence whatsoever of transmission is food, which is the sector that I work in.
Right.
And so that's Hygiene Theater and perception of food as a vehicle. It's all wrapped up in a lot of public discussion and concern. And it's as a researcher, it's a really challenging time. Because,
and I almost wonder if that narrative kind of got away from us too fast, in the beginning, because it is a new virus that, we haven't seen. Right. And so, we were fielding questions from some of our members in the very, very beginning, like, should I be wiping down packages that our vendors are bringing in?
Right.
with the Lysol wipe, should I even let them in the building in the first place? And we didn't know, the answer to that. But fortunately, folks like you did, and we were able to lean on the expertise of your colleagues. But right, and the FDA has been very vocal about the fact that it's not a food. COVID is not foodborne. Like it's completely different.
Right. And this is where things get a little like fun with the nuance, like in a situation where someone is infected and is shedding the virus in their, in their moisture droplets that they're breathing out. If they're not wearing a face covering, those virus particles could certainly end up on packaging and on food. But I think the nuance that's really important here is that food's not a vector to lead to illness. A virus particle on that food has a real like maybe a theoretical path to infection, but not a it's got a lot of hurdles to lead to infection. Mm-hmm. And so many so that we've seen none, no cases, and we would expect to see so by now. Right. If it was a foodborne virus that leads to infection, we would expect to see, people all going to the same restaurant at different times with one employee being sick, leading to illness, or people eating something that all came from the same processing plant or same farm and leading to illness. We have seen none of that.
Right.
So Ben, let me just ask one question from the consumer. I heard everything you said. It sounded trustworthy. You'd have a very trustworthy voice. But I guess from a consumer perspective, and especially, I won't call myself like a clean freak, but I definitely I prefer clean spaces. And, we don't have to wipe off things you're saying, unless someone just literally just breathed all over it, all that kind of stuff. But from a consumer walking into a store perspective, or my perception of it, I want to see you cleaning things. I want to see you not only have masks on, but I want to see you wiping things down. Is that something that a retailer should really focus on doing more so for the perspective or the perception of the consumer, as well as keeping your store clean? But it's not really going to, you're not going to be able to trace it back to, let's say, this particular retailer because you walked in and this countertop or this packaging that you went to go pick up gave you something. I feel like that's what you're saying, but I feel like I need to see you doing that or I'm not coming into your store. Is that fair?
Sure. Yeah. And I would throw in maybe to me a more important thing that I want to see, and that's that the operator of the store, the manager, whoever's in charge of decision making is enforcing this issue around face coverings and masks and social distancing. Those are, I mean, if I'm looking at the pecking order of risk reduction, I think these things all go hand in hand. What we are sort of seeing from the science and the data standpoint, and don't trust me because I have a trustworthy voice or anything like that. I'm a data driven individual, and the data that we have on hand shows that if I had to pick one thing, it's limiting people being around people, not the cleaning and disinfection. Certainly as an operator, I want to demonstrate to my customers that I know how to handle this. And I think you can't parse those things out from each other. I think we need to be doing all of it. From a perception and from a risk reduction standpoint. I think where things get a little dicey is, really early on in the communication, like Chris mentioned, in the rhetoric about, like, when you go to the store, coming home and taking those packages and leaving them on the porch for 3 days or dousing them in any sort of disinfectant. It's not like, and this will be me talking from a virology standpoint, it's not like the virus is going to jump off that packaging and somehow magically end up in your respiratory tract. The way that it would get there is through hands. And so I can accomplish all the same things. And I know Chris said we're not, you've heard a lot about hand washing, Donovan, but I literally can accomplish all the same things by, after I touch packaging, washing my hands or using hand sanitizer, which I really want to point out is best practice for food safety all the time.
No matter what.
Yeah. Like, and that's like
just a basic human function of life. Yep. Wash your hands.
Yep.
Yeah. And that's like not a new message, right? Like, no. Like it's not something that all of a sudden in
but
January,
extremely terrifying though, how many people don't wash their hands.
We needed reminders. I mean, it's in our offices now, when we came back this summer, on kind of like if you choose to go back type of basis, when we came back, first thing I saw when I walked into the men's restroom were signs saying, here's how to wash your hands. Here's how long to wash your hands. Here's what to do afterwards. And I felt like this is ridiculous, but I definitely followed those steps. So I'm hoping someone out there who never washed their hands before will. Let me ask you one more question, Ben, before we get out of here. I don't want to lose this question. So I like fast food. That is a known thing in the office. I think it's the greatest invention since the iPhone.
It's not a strong enough word.
It's so good. Breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Love it. So the thing is, as long as I don't know or can't see it, it's safe. But when I go into, I can't walk in the back of my favorite fast food restaurant and see how they're making it. And I love that. But I don't like hot dogs, but I think about when I go into certain convenience stores and I see the hot dogs or any type of food that's warm, like on a roller sitting out, where there's really no, in my mind, covering, which there is. Should someone still buy that in amidst a pandemic or at any time? Is it safe to have food out like that, where it's cooking? From the visual perspective, I think of right now, I'd go, oh, I'm not going to eat that, even though at my fast food establishment is probably the same way. But can you shed any light on, for those who are non-C-store owners and we want to go to a C-store and maybe pick up a hot dog, is that safe?
Well, Donovan, first, is it the food? You just don't like hot dogs, or are you thinking
I can't
that
stand hot dogs.
There's people
but if I did
like touching the roller grill and then
like,
wiping
are they
their
breathing?
nose and whatever? Is it like a germ spread?
Yes. Can germs like make right turns and directly to food? I want to know what's safe.
So I'll give you like the pure sort of risk analysis question that I would use. I would say those hot dogs are as safe as they were before the pandemic, and I know that's kind of like a cop out, but nothing's really changed. So as a C-store owner, if I'm managing that hot dog roller and following the best practices for food safety, there's no extra risk. For all the reasons that we talked about before, that the SARS-CoV-2 is not foodborne. Managing temperature on hot dog rollers is important. If those hot dogs are sitting there for multiple hours, as they might be, overnight, and someone comes in late, knowing that my equipment is working is really the most important part. And we always want to be protecting food from contamination, whether that be aerosolized viruses. And in fact, one that we haven't talked about that is probably the one that I would worry about the most in the food setting is norovirus. I want to always be protecting my food from any any particles that might be dropping over there. And I get your I really get the question, because now it's something that you're thinking about in a different way, right? Like, we've heard a lot about airborne aerosolization of this virus. Can it float and make that right turn? Can it get around a barrier? The quick answer is probably not. But even if it could, it's not the right way for us to get sick from the pathogen that we would expect to see. And I'll put it out there. I'm a huge hot dog fan. I love
hot dogs.
I love hot
Donovan.
Dogs. Yeah. It's like the most versatile food. There's so many regional differences. Great food. But yeah, I mean, it's a great question, and I think we're just like with hand washing. This pandemic doesn't really change our messages or the things that we want people to be doing for food safety, which is protecting it from contamination from those pathogens that could be there.
Yeah. Do you feel safer, Donovan? You should.
I'm definitely feeling a little warm and fuzzy. So yes, thank you.
If I can put a point on it a little more, in the world of food safety, we look at outbreaks and clusters of illnesses and epidemiology. And I am not, we could track, fresh produce linked to outbreaks. We can track, ground beef, flour as a source. I mean, so many different foods, sprouts. I mean, just all over the place, packaged foods. I cannot think about one outbreak or cluster of illnesses linked to hot dog rollers at a convenience store. So not to say that it hasn't happened. It's just not on the top of our list of epidemiology pointing to it.
Yeah. So Ben, you also have a pretty fun, you have a couple podcasts, actually. You have a weekly one, and then you also have one that you do with Dr. Don called Risky or Not, which I love it. First of all, I love it for a couple reasons. One, it's short. And then the intro music makes me giggle every single time. I actually thought it was Don, so I was surprised to see that it wasn't him doing the lyrics.
That's hilarious.
One of my favorite ones that you did was on, you guys basically, you pick a topic like, can I leave butter on the dish on the counter? Is that risky or not? Can I, or my chickens that we have in our house, or not the house, in our yard, risky or not, which that one made me laugh too, because I have a family member who has chickens, and I shared your passion for not really liking them after you've taken care of chickens and try to get them back in the coop at night. And then there's like one or two whose eggs just end up everywhere except where they're supposed to lay them. I get it. But I think, Donovan, that podcast is perfect for you. And you can, you guys have a lot of episodes. I think you have like 80 over. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I definitely think and they are short. So there's definitely there's a topic for everybody, really. But yeah, cool. It's a fun way to bring food safety more at the consumer level, because, I'm not a food safety expert by any means. I mean, I'm involved with NACS, and a lot of it is, just kind of, playing the middleman and in helping our retailers connect with other folks in academia or within the industry that have to do with food safety. And, one of the things that I've learned is that it's a large community, but it's also very small. And it's very tight knit. And, the more that you start to, show up at meetings and get involved, you start to see some of the same names and the same faces. And Ben, yours is one of them. So I was, pretty excited when our colleague from Wawa suggested, to get in touch with you for the Food CoviNet group. So, hopefully, convenience retail, as I see it, is just such a unique aspect of food retail, right? Like everybody is different. I mean, there are some areas within the space where, folks might look a little different, but in terms of the operations and being, 24/7 operations this industry sees half the US population every single day.
Right.
So
right.
To have that, to be, involved with things like this, where we can start getting, good science and good data behind the things that people are doing. I think it's just a great opportunity.
Well, yeah, and absolutely. Chris, thanks for you to be part of our project and providing insight from the C-store sector. And I couldn't agree with you more on the importance of just the footprint and the consumption aspect of food coming from convenience stores, and in many, I live in North Carolina, and we have lots of counties where convenience stores are the main source of food, especially in some areas where just economically there are lots of issues around industries going away and other food retailer settings leaving, and so it's I like I said, I couldn't agree more about the importance of working as a food safety researcher, someone who does communication with the sector. And really, the good news is a lot of the stuff that happens has a lot of controls in, but just I think some of the bigger challenges is just working with lots of different backgrounds of retailers who might not have been from the food service sector, but are now doing limited food service and thinking about temperature control and thinking about hand washing and cross contamination and just the importance. And when things go I'm optimistic in my outlook and so many things in my life. But when it comes to food safety, I'm like worst case scenario kind of guy, because I think I'm around outbreaks all the time and around risk. And when things go bad, they can go really, really bad. And that's, it's one of those things that in the world of food safety, and I'll totally just, butcher a quote from someone else on this and repurpose it for today's podcast. But, when things go right in the world of food safety, it's like no one gets sick, right? So no one notices.
Right.
It's only when things go bad that we become sort of, I guess, important in the minds of many folks within the sector world. If it's marketing or sales or labor, it's only when like something bad happens that the food safety world gets attention.
Right. Well, and you definitely don't want to have to be forced into a reaction mode at that stage too, right? Like you got to plan for it, whether just like a pandemic, you got to plan. But Donovan, you have a food safety expert on the phone, and you consume a lot of food away from home. Is there anything that you really, really want to ask?
Okay, last question for me is this. I not only do I like fast food, I also like pizza. So I really love it the day after, especially if I leave it out in the box overnight and then come get it in the morning.
It's as risky or not.
I know.
It's cheese. My wife's always like, oh God, it's too bad. You can't eat it. I've never gotten sick from it. My dog has never gotten sick from it. We're both healthy eating pizza leftover overnight. What's the over under me catching something really bad?
All right. So this is one where it matters what kind of pizza you're eating. So
Papa John's, go ahead.
Well, no, and actually, I not who it's from, but you tell me what your toppings are, because this is
pepperoni and cheese.
Just pepperoni and cheese.
Very simple.
I'm gonna go not risky, and
see, I know it.
But here's why. So the baking process. So there's two things that we really worry about, or let's say three things that we worry about in the world of food safety when it comes to bacterial growth. One is acidity of the food. So things like, for the most part, fruits, they're high acid. We measure this in pH. They've got a low pH. Bacteria don't like to grow for the most part in that. The second thing that we focus on is something that's kind of like moisture, but it's a little bit different. It's called water activity, and that's how much water is available for any bacteria to grow. And so to give you a sense, something like a jam or a jelly, tons of water in it, right? Almost no water activity, very low water activity, because it's all bound up by sugar. And then the other thing that goes hand in hand is time and temperature. So those are our three big things: acidity, water activity, time, and temperature. When you get a pizza from Papa John's or whoever your favorite pizza place is, and we think about, well, what's on there and how much water might be left after I bake it and let it sit out really to dry. And so the cheese, pepperoni itself is it's a fermented meat. So we're using lactic acid to take all the sugar that's in that meat, and lactic acid fermenting bacteria, to take all the sugar that's in that meat and make lactic acid to change the pH to make it more acidic. And as again, for the most part, in generalities, that pepperoni, it's why you can buy it at room temperature at a store. It is not going to support the growth of bacteria. So we've got that pepperoni, we've got that cheese, we bake it and we let it dry overnight. It's really unlikely to grow anything, even if you're putting it on there. Now, all bets are off. Forever.
This is great.
Yeah, but let me just tell you, all bets are off if you start throwing vegetables on there.
Nope. No, I don't eat those things.
But that's I guess that's the fun part of my world, right? Is pizza's not just pizza, right? It's not as easy as pizza left overnight is safe. It's now we're getting into, well, do I have tomatoes? Do I have green pepper? Do I have onions? Mm-hmm. Because there's more water that will come out of that food, and it's not as acidic as that meat. And now we've got a potential for a problem. So I'm going to go yours, not risky, because certainly just cheese and pepperoni, it's a really low risk step of leaving that out overnight.
I'll see you in 80 years. I'll still be here, nice and fermented and preserved. It's great.
Well, Ben, thanks so much for joining us. It's fun as always, and hopefully we can talk soon.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks again for having me on, and I really appreciate the work that you guys are doing.
Absolutely. Thanks, guys.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Convenience Matters is brought to you by NACS and produced in partnership with Human Factor. For more information, visit convenience.org.